Hey, what's up? Wes here. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Now, it's the 30th anniversary of Metroid, and I myself have been playing the game ever since its 1987 release here in the States, and it is without a doubt one of my all-time favorite NES games. Now, if you happen to catch my 5 most nostalgic games video, then you already know that Metroid sequel Super Metroid is one of my all-time favorite games, period. So when I played the next game in the franchise, Metroid Fusion, I instantly fell in love with it as it is classic Metroid through and through. And it's so good that I often ask myself, is it better than Super Metroid? And every time I play Fusion, I always ask myself this, but I've never really had the heart to thoroughly compare it up against one of my most beloved adventures, which epitomizes everything about nostalgia that I hold so dear. Well, I'm finally gonna do it. It's time to take off the rose-colored goggles and face what I've been asking myself for years. Which is the better game? Super Metroid or Metroid Fusion? Super Metroid was released for the Super Nintendo on April 18th, 1994, to eagerly awaiting North American audiences. I was one of them, and the anticipation I had for this game surpassed a similar feeling that I had waiting for Mike Tyson's Punch-Out only a few years prior. When I was finally able to play it after its release, I was not disappointed. Not even close. In fact, Super Metroid had eclipsed my expectations, and I completely fell in love with it. In Super Metroid, you once again take command of space bounty hunter Samus Arans, who delivers a Metroid hatchling still in its larval state to Ceres space colony in order for it to be studied, as the scientists aboard believe that the Metroid's powers can be harnessed for a greater good. Samus leaves the station in search of a new bounty to hunt before receiving a distress signal from Ceres, and immediately returns to find all of the scientists slaughtered and the larval Metroid in the clutches of a well-known foe, Ridley. Ridley departs with the hatchling, returning to his home planet Zebes, with Samus narrowly escaping the space colony's self-destruct mechanism and following close behind. Once disembarking from her ship, Samus finds herself on familiar terrain, passing through the intimate surroundings of her first encounter with the Metroids to discover that the Criterions, the space pirates that inhabit Zebes, have begun rebuilding their underground fortress that Samus had previously destroyed. Super Metroid plays like the previous 2 games in the series, only with a ton of improvements. A much appreciated map feature was added, displaying Samus's location in the upper right of the screen, with a full map accessible through a sub-screen. Samus is equipped with an arm cannon that has the ability to fire in 8 different directions. Missiles are collected along the way that open red hatches, and a super missile was added, which opens green hatches and has significantly more destructive power than the standard missile. Other weapons are reintroduced, such as the ice and wave beams, along with the addition of some new goodies, such as the plasma beam. The layout in Super Metroid is impressive for its time, with numerous maze-like corridors twisted throughout the underbelly of Zebes, and in typical Metroid fashion, loaded with tons of hidden doors and items to discover, and peppered with numerous secret passages. The map system, save rooms, and hidden areas in Super Metroid have influenced a handful of similar titles to borrow elements from this ingenious design. It is truly a trailblazing adventure. There are several large areas to explore, such as Brinstar and Norfair, along with some new ones like Meridia and a haunted wrecked ship. The game requires you to explore these areas only to find inaccessible paths that can only be breached with just the right item. Lots of backtracking in this one, but the excitement and anticipation one feels when finally obtaining the correct item to be able to reach these previously impassable sections and discover what is behind closed doors, so to speak, is one of the facets that makes Super Metroid such a fantastic game. Considering that the setting is the same as the first Metroid, many of the enemies are recycled from Samus's inaugural mission. But there are also many new monstrosities throughout, and a boss guarding each of the vast areas beneath the Criterion crust. The baddies in Super Metroid are colorful and unique, each with their own specific attacks and patterns, and are without a doubt some of the most memorable space menaces ever brought to life through a video game. The graphics as a whole are astounding and some of the best on the SNES. The vision of Samus's power suit comes to life beautifully as our space heroine's armor looks amazing during gameplay and even has the occasional gleam to it. You can't argue that Samus is one of the coolest looking protagonists to ever grace a video game, and Super Metroid shows this off in style. The backgrounds and environment throughout envelop you in a rich and colorful world filled with rain-soaked backdrops, lava-laden caverns, and underwater grottos. The larger-than-life bosses have enormous amounts of detail to them, and the Metroids themselves are bigger and brighter than ever and look jellyfish pretty despite how catastrophic they are. The soundtrack is also astounding and envelops you in the world of Zebes, and is one of the first games that I can recall which actually mirrors the environments and adds that extra element to the adventure. The theme that plays throughout Brinstar is memorable within seconds of hearing it, and has to be one of my all-time favorite tunes on the Super Nintendo. And the background music that blares throughout Ridley's hideout is freaking epic. Now, back in 1994, Super Metroid was considered a fairly large game, with a plethora of hidden items and pathways to discover, some of which are mandatory to complete the mission. With numerous items such as super bombs and the space jump, Samus is always conforming to her newfound goods, and even has a dash to utilize in this one. How freaking cool is that? Now, once you've played the game several times and learned where everything is, it may not seem that long at all, and can be completed within several hours. And that's the type of game Super Metroid is, one that you will replay several times over. The first thing you want to do after finishing it is play it again. And again. Damn that Mother Brain and her evil space pirate minions. What else can I say about this game? It's a masterpiece, plain and simple. So Metroid didn't receive another sequel for 8 long years. Released in November of 2002, Metroid Fusion is the 4th installment in the series, developed by the same team that crafted its ingenious predecessor, R&D1. The game was released exclusively for the Game Boy Advance, which means that it wasn't exactly the most easily accessible installment for hardcore Metroid fans that abhor handheld gaming. Which is a damn shame, because Fusion is absolutely brilliant. This time around, Samus Aran finds herself once again exploring the surface of the Metroid's home planet, SR-388. Accompanied by a survey crew from Biologic Space Laboratories, Samus encounters the X-Parasite, an amorphous being that attaches itself to a host, which then has the ability to mimic said host's physical appearance and even their memories before disposing of the shell, similar to the alien lifeform from the movie The Thing. Unbeknownst to Samus, the X-Parasite infects her body, and upon her return to the BSL space station, Samus loses consciousness and is auto-ejected from her ship before it crashes into a nearby asteroid belt. Samus is then transported to Galactic Federation headquarters, but not before the X multiplies within her body, infecting her central nervous system and corrupting parts of Samus's power suit. The scientists assigned to save Samus's life discovered that a vaccine could be concocted from the infant Metroid sample obtained from Samus's prior mission, as Metroids are the X's natural predator. The vaccine eradicates the X-Parasites within, but parts of Samus's power suit could not be surgically removed, thus creating a fused power suit/human hybrid. In this state, Samus has the ability to absorb X nuclei for nourishment, but is also susceptible to the Metroid's weakness to cold. Samus is then sent back to the BSL station, where pieces of her infected suit were sent for examination to investigate a mysterious explosion. Samus is aided by a supercomputer whom she names Adam after her former commanding officer. Upon arrival to the space station, Samus discovers that it has been completely infected and overrun with X-Parasites, including one mimicking Samus herself at full power, known as the SAX. This is where your mission begins. From the get-go, Adam assigns Samus to investigate a particular section of the station, and the rest of the game plays out in a similar fashion. Metroid Fusion is much more linear than Super Metroid, with the supercomputer assigning Samus on various tasks throughout the game, marking the destination points on the map. While some may scoff at this mechanic, believe me, it's much more difficult than it sounds. Getting from point A to point B is burdened with numerous enemies and plenty of obstacles blocking Samus's path. While some destinations are seemingly a stone's throw away, it isn't as easy as just opening a door and waltzing in. Oftentimes, you'll need to discover an alternate path to reach your destination, and it'll sometimes take out-of-the-box thinking to achieve this feat. And it is absolutely gratifying. The entire mission takes place within the space station, which is broken up into 6 sectors, each of them emulating a different environment. This is similar to the different areas of planet Zebes, and while it may be off-putting to purists who prefer their Metroid adventures on actual planets, I can assure you that it makes absolutely no difference here. Each of the 6 environments are completely unique unto themselves and offer a distinct experience from each other. Like Super Metroid, Fusion retains the save, map, and recharge rooms while adding navigation rooms in which Samus is able to communicate with Adam. These navigation rooms are used to relay information to Samus and point her towards her next destination. These rooms are also used to provide Samus with impertinent weapon downloads. Rather than discovering weapons hidden throughout the 6 environments, certain weapon downloads become available along the way, assigned to specific navigation room locations for Samus to seek out. Purists may also balk at this method of obtaining new gear, as opposed to Super Metroid's seek and find approach, but again, I assure you that this does not take anything away from the game itself. Like Super Metroid, many of the items obtained in Fusion are the same or similar to the ones found in previous Metroid titles. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Instead of collecting health orbs and weapon power-ups for replenishment, Samus absorbs X nuclei, which are liberated from their hosts once Samus destroys them. These nuclei also have the ability to infect other creatures once freed, which is actually necessary at times to progress further. The enemies in Fusion, like its predecessor, are colorfully unique and detailed, as are the many bosses inhabiting the space station. These enemies range from the small and weak to large and horrifying, but none of the creatures attacking Samus are nearly as terrifying as the X-parasite mimicking Samus herself, the SA-X. The SA-X, as I previously had mentioned, emulates Samus at full strength, which she clearly is not at the beginning of the game. The SA-X often shows up unexpectedly, leaving a trail of destruction behind. This without a doubt heightens the fear factor as you play the game, because your only option is to run, as your chances of survival against the SA-X are absolutely nil. It's very similar to the Nemesis showing up unannounced in Resident Evil 3. One minute you'll be calmly exploring a room, and then the next running for your life, seeking sanctuary behind walls and darkened corners. Running scared has never been so much fun. Just like Super Metroid, there are loads of secrets to be found and numerous hidden passages to explore. The terrain covered in Fusion is larger than that of Super Metroid, with even more hidden items and passages to discover, not to mention even more difficult to locate, as the developers didn't hold back on how cleverly well these items and passages were concealed. If you got used to bombing every inch of Zebes in the previous game, that's good, because you'll be doing even more of it here. The graphics in Fusion are some of the best that the Game Boy Advance has to offer, especially the spectacular cutscenes, which helps paint Samus's adventure into a vivid, albeit horrifying picture. And the soundtrack is archetypical Metroid, once again complementing the landscape with music that echoes the numerous contrasting environments. The game is fairly challenging, a bit more so than Super Metroid, and while the map in Fusion is larger, it still seems a bit short and can leave you wanting more. Not uncommon for a Metroid title. The game offers some replay value after completion by allowing Samus to unearth the remainder of goodies stashed throughout the space station, displaying on the map screen how many items are located in a certain sector and how many of those items that have already been found. And there's a lot to discover. Metroid Fusion is an excellent representation of the franchise that simply should not be missed. But the big question now is, Is it better than Super Metroid? Let's break it down. While the two of these games offer an interesting narrative, both with an opening prologue, the addition of vibrant cutscene graphics in Fusion throughout the game, and a more engrossing story, places Fusion slightly above Super Metroid. While I can't deny that the intro to Super Metroid is absolutely epic, and probably my all-time favorite for a video game to date, Fusion has more to offer with the back and forth between Samus and Adam, allowing us a peek into Samus's personality, while she's pretty much devoid of one in Super Metroid. Gotta go with Fusion here. For the most part, both games are identical in this regard, but since the Game Boy Advance has 2 less buttons than the Super Nintendo controller, some adjustments had to be made. To use missiles on Fusion, you press and hold the R button while pressing B, as opposed to Super Metroid that requires you to use the select button, having to use the same thumb that works the D-pad. This works far better on Fusion, as you're able to quickly switch between missiles and standard shots while moving Samus at the same time. Of course, sacrifices had to be made in order for this to work. On Super Metroid, the R button is used to aim upwards at a 45-degree angle, while the L button aims in the same fashion, only downward. On Fusion, the L button aims both up and downward, corresponding with either an up or down press on the D-pad respectively. In this regard, Super Metroid wins the battle, but the ability to easily switch weapons while running and shooting, utilizing the R button on Fusion, trumps all. Not to mention the ability to grab edges to hoist Samus up to higher platforms, which is absolutely a welcome addition. The winner here? Fusion. Both games excel in the graphics department, but Fusion has a more colorful palette with brighter environments than Super Metroid and a cast of livelier creatures which inhabit the space station. And let's not forget the fantastic cutscene graphics. Nuff said. Fusion all the way. The music in Super Metroid is phenomenal and perfectly exemplifies the atmospheric presence a game of this magnitude requires. While Fusion also carries on this tradition, it's obvious that the GBA's limitations force the sound to be sacrificed a bit in order to produce higher quality visuals. But the tunes in Super Metroid are also more memorable as a whole, which decrees it the winner in this category. As I have previously stated, many of the weapons and items are the same in both games. Absent from Fusion is the Ice Beam, instead replaced with Ice Missiles, which allows you to freeze enemies as you choose, as opposed to the Ice Beam, which freezes enemies right before they perish. Absent from Fusion are the Super Missiles, which seems to balance the scales. With nearly the same arsenal, items, and power suit upgrades for both games, I'd have to call this one a draw. While hidden paths and items are a long-running staple in the Metroid series, Fusion really takes advantage of exploiting these secrets, at times making the discovery of hidden corridors mandatory to advance further in the game. Items are hidden in the most unlikeliest of places, and checking every nook and cranny that the game has to offer is not a waste of time. While Super Metroid also has a deluge of secrets to uncover, Fusion took it a step further and expanded the creativity of cloaking such items and paths. Fusion gets a nod here once again. Which leads us to the map. Super Metroid epitomizes how an ideal map system should work, and has influenced the likes of infamous franchises such as Castlevania. Items found in rooms are marked with the dot on the map for those of us lacking the memory of an elephant. But Fusion, like with many other facets within the game, expanded on this by displaying an open circle on the map for items not yet collected, which changed to dots once obtained, displaying which items have already been acquired. And once Fusion has been completed, the map screen then exhibits a legend for all items located within each sector, assisting you in tracking down the remaining goods to achieve a 100% location rate. Winner goes to Fusion. Now, while Super Metroid has a vast array of ugly space mutants to dispose of, Fusion has even more sickening baddies to give Samus a run for her money. Bosses included. Super Metroid has several bosses that would love to take a bite out of Samus, but Fusion has even more. A lot more. Each with their own patterns and weaknesses to exploit. And after each boss or host is defeated, Samus must then raise the X-Parasite from existence, each one of them stronger than the last. And let's not forget about the SAX, quite possibly the most dangerous foe Samus has had to face yet. Fusion easily wins this category. And finally, the length of each adventure. While I've already stated that both games are relatively short and is probably my biggest complaint of the two, Fusion has the larger world to explore with even more hidden paths and secrets to discover versus Super Metroid. Fusion is also the more difficult of the two and has even more bosses to eradicate, once again declaring it the winner. So overall, both games are absolutely fantastic and bona fide classics. While I absolutely adore Super Metroid and have a lot of nostalgia for it, I had to remove the rose-colored lenses to confirm that Metroid Fusion is indeed the better game. And by a large margin too. Fusion basically took everything that made Super Metroid such an exceptional game and improved on it tenfold. There's no denying that it is one of the best installments for an already extraordinary franchise. Metroid Fusion is a winner any way you look at it, and if you're a fan of Super Metroid, well, that should just tell you what a fantastic adventure Metroid Fusion provides. If you've yet to play it, I implore you, don't waste another second. You won't be disappointed. Metroid Fusion is even better than Super Metroid. What can I say? If you haven't played Metroid Fusion yet, get on it. I had a couple of friends in mind when I made this video who love the Metroid series, but have yet to experience this masterpiece from lack of owning a Game Boy Advance. Play it on your big screen. It's available on the Wii U Virtual Console. Play it on the Retron 5. Play it on the Game Boy Advance player on the GameCube. Hell, emulate the damn thing. Just do it. You will not regret it. Now, for those of you that have played both titles, which one is your favorite game? They're both absolutely fantastic, so I would love to hear what you guys think. Just go ahead and leave me a comment below. So thanks a lot for watching this video. I hope you really enjoyed it. Happy 30th, Metroid. I hope to see another 2D adventure from you soon. Until next time, I'll catch you guys later.